Hello and welcome to the first episode in a brand new series where I break down the world's cheapest surf destinations. I've spent the best part of the last decade traveling the world, mostly on a budget, trying to score as many waves as possible for as little money as I can. Now, surf travel can be pretty expensive. I know firsthand all of the costs that go into it, from your flights, your accommodation, all your internal transport, your airport transfers, your taxis, your food, surf equipment, travel equipment, list goes on, and that's not even to mention if anything goes wrong. However, don't let that put you off, because surf travel doesn't have to be expensive. By choosing the right destinations and by implementing some budget travel tips, you can basically go anywhere. In this episode, we're going to look at an overview of the world's cheapest surf destinations. So let's get down to it. First on our list is Ecuador, the South American nation with over 2,000 kilometers of coastline. There's heaps of fun waves for all abilities, tons of other cool stuff to do. It's tropical year round, and the cost of living is some of the lowest in South America. So while there are dozens of different waves across Ecuador, the most well-known spots and amenities are focused in and around the town of Montañita. Montañita is a thriving backpacker slash surf town. It's got loads of bars, loads of hostels, restaurants, nightlife, and there's a scattering of fun waves all around the coast. Out front, there's a long stretch of beginner-friendly beach break, and to the northern end of the same beach, there's a really fun right-hand point break, which is good for intermediates and advanced surfers. North of that, you've got another stretch of more exposed beach break called Olon. And then up and down the coast, there's a number of other breaks and some spots with barrels and more powerful waves, but I'll let you find those for yourself. In town, you can find dorm rooms for less than $10. Check out Iguana Hostel or Cayena Beach Hostel. Both have rooms for less than $10 per night and are located right in the heart of Montañita. So if you want to be close to all the bars, restaurants, nightlife, those are some of the cheapest and best places to stay. There's also a Selena. So Selena is a chain of digital nomad backpacker hostels throughout all of South and Central America. I love Selena. It's got everything I need for working, and yeah, it's always a pretty good vibe. In town, you can find meals for a couple of bucks, beers for even less, and the best way to get around on a budget is just by hopping in taxis. You can get around town for $1 or $2. You can get to the neighboring coast beaches for less than a couple of dollars. So it's super cheap. You don't need a car really to get around. And yeah, you've got waves right out the front as well. Montañita is definitely an easy one if you're on a budget and you're limited with your transportation, and a wicked little surf town with fun waves, and one that I couldn't recommend highly enough. Next up, we've got El Salvador. So El Salvador is famous for the right-hand cobblestone point break of Punta Roca. There's also tons of other fun waves. You've got another right-hand point break called El Sunzal, super long, really fun. Just across the channel from that, in the same town, you've got La Bocana. It's a cobblestone A-frame, pretty sick, super consistent, and the cost of living in El Salvador is still super low. It's famous now for hosting both the ISA Games and the Championship Tour, so it's drawing attention, and for good reason. The waves are pretty consistent throughout El Salvador, but by far the best place to base yourself for a trip is the town of El Tunco. So El Tunco is where they have the games. It's really close to Punta Roca. In town, you'll be able to walk to Sunzal, you'll be able to walk to Bocana, and you're just a short chicken bus ride away from Punta Roca. So you've got all of these waves in a short distance. The town's got heaps of accommodations, heaps of hostels, heaps of camps, bars, cafes, restaurants. I always think of El Tunco as a little bubble, kind of separate from the rest of El Salvador. It feels really safe, it's really clean. Now, there's so many cheap places to stay. One that I'd highly recommend is Papaya Lodge. At Papaya Lodge, you can stay in a dorm room for $15 per night with breakfast included. The staff there are super friendly. You will need to speak a bit of Spanish, so brush up on that before you go. They've got a pool, there's communal space, there's hangout areas, and yeah, you're just right in town. You can just walk to everything. You can walk out to the beach, shops next door, restaurants the other side. It's just a wicked place to stay. So I'll link that in the description. Now, in town, you can eat really cheap. There are some more upmarket restaurants where you can spend a bit more. You can score meals for between $5 and $10. To keep things cheap, I'd highly recommend tucking into the local grub. You've got these things called pupusas, which are essentially like savory pancakes. They're freaking delicious. You can have them filled with cheese, chicken, veg. They cost $1 a piece, and yes, I do eat 4 of them and class that as a meal. And yeah, they go down so nicely between surf sessions. Alternatively, there's loads of other restaurants. You can eat anything you want in El Tunco. Next up, we've got Bali. Now, Bali has been drawing surfers from around the world for decades. The waves and its popularity as a world-class surf destination are no secret. However, because of its popularity, prices are definitely not as cheap as they used to be in Bali. Now, Indonesia has some much cheaper places throughout the country, but I just think Bali has that perfect combination of the standard of living and the cost. I just don't think there's anywhere better. A lot of the rooms are super nice in Bali. People are super friendly. Get around on your moped for, you know, a few dollars a day. It's just has that perfect combination. So while Bali is much more crowded and definitely not as cheap as it once was, you can still live there for a fraction of what you can in North America or Europe or Australia. And yeah, you're in a great position to score some fun waves. For punchy beach break wedges, check out Canggu. Echo Beach has got a left reef, a wedgy beach break in the middle, and a right-hand reef on the other side. Just to the left of all that, you've got Old Man's, which is sick for longboarders and mal riders. Or for something higher quality, head down to the Bukit Peninsula and check out the world famous Uluwatu, Padang Padang. You've got Dreamland Beach, Bingin Beach, all of those, you know, epic spots that put Balinese surfing on the map. In the main surf town hubs of Uluwatu and Canggu, you can stay at a sick hostel for $10 per night. You can eat epic meals for less than $5, and you can get great coffee for less than $2. So it's still pretty cheap. You can essentially just pick your budget because there's so many options. You know, you can stay at a really cheap hostel, you can eat and go to the local like roadside warangs for your food, or you can stay in a really plush hotel and go to the more upmarket restaurants. So you can kind of just pick your budget and it's whatever you make of it. So check out some of these hostels for the cheapest stays in and around town. Otherwise, my personal favorite in Canggu is Bougainvillea. Now, Bougainvillea, you can get a private room for around 12 to 15 US dollars per night. I'll leave that link in the description. Sick place to stay. Owners are super friendly. You're close to everything you want to be close to, and yeah, room's super clean, and it's my go-to spot to stay whenever I go to Bali. You'll also want a moped for getting around. It's the go-to mode of transportation, and although this is a little bit of an extra cost compared to some budget surf destinations, you can get a moped for between $2 and $5 per day. Usually, the longer you stay, the cheaper the price becomes. So, you know, if you get to your accommodation and say, look, I'm going to be here for a month, how much does it cost to rent the moped for the whole month? Whereas if you do it per day, it's a bit more expensive. I'd recommend hiring your moped through your accommodation. As soon as you've booked your accom, just give them a message and say, look, I need a moped with a surfboard rack, and they'll be able to sort you out. Next up, we've got Mexico. From the world-class right point of Barra de la Cruz to the thumping beach breaks of Puerto Escondido, Mexico's position as a world-class surf destination is no secret. The place is freaking epic. So many world-class waves, a huge coastline. And yeah, as a budget surf traveler, there's not really many places better in the world. Getting to and getting around Mexico is also super cheap. There's a wicked overnight bus system that's cheap and pretty reliable. So when you're on the buses overnight, you can use that as your accommodation and your transport, which is pretty sick. In most major surf towns, you can find rooms for between 10 and 20 US dollars. In Puerto Escondido, check out a place called Casa de Enquiries. You can find a dorm room there for $12 per night. You're just a few minutes walk from Playa Zicatela, which is the main beach where, you know, you see all those super heavy, sick barrels going on. And yeah, you're close to a few shops and restaurants there as well. You got a pool, communal kitchen, the owner's super friendly. So I'll link that down below. Alternatively, if you want to stay even closer to the beach, check out Pipeline Hostel, which is on the main road. That's one of the cheapest places you can stay in Puerto. Otherwise, just down the road from there, you've got Selena, you know, the same chain of hostels, wicked digital nomad spot. They've also got the best Wi-Fi in town. Again, I'll leave all those in the description below. If you're staying in Barra de la Cruz, check out Cabañas High Sur. You're about a 15-minute walk from the beach at Barra, and it's about as close as you can get in terms of accommodation to the beach. You can find private rooms here for $20 per night. For finding any surf accommodation, I'd highly recommend checking out booking.com or Hostel World. I find they're always the best two websites to find accommodation on. They just always have the best and the cheapest options. So again, I'll link those down below. So our next budget surf destination is Sri Lanka. Now, if you're a beginner, intermediate, and definitely if you're a budget surf traveler, Sri Lanka is literally custom made for you. It's the cheapest surf destination I've ever been to. The waves are super mellow, but really fun as well. For those classic right-hand point breaks, head between April and October and score Aragon Bay. Then between October and April, in the opposite season, check out the little beach town of Midigama and Hikkaduwa. In those towns, there's some super fun waves, kind of for all abilities. There's a little right barrel, there's a beginner-friendly beach break, there's a few other like little A-frame reef peaks and beaches. Yeah, I always think Sri Lanka it's not like a super serious, intense destination. It's just, you go out there, it's super warm, it's super mellow, it's just a fun place to go. In terms of cost, Sri Lanka is super, super cheap. Now, when I visited, it was around 8 years ago, so I don't know if prices have crept up again. If you've been more recently, please let me know in the comments. But back then, you could eat meals for literally a couple of dollars. You could get a huge plate of curry for like $2 or $3. You know, you can get all of these like samosa sort of snack things for like less than $1. And yeah, accommodation, you can find dorm rooms for less than $10 a night. Privates just north of that. In all the major surf towns, you're gonna find those super cheap budget surf hostels, and you're also gonna find those more upmarket places. So check out a few of these places, and yeah, you'll be good to go. Getting around Sri Lanka is also super cheap. They've got a good train system that basically goes around the whole bottom of the coastline. So the train tickets are always super cheap. The buses, although they're really scary and the drivers are pretty reckless, they're also really cheap. As long as you don't mind being sweaty and crammed in with your board bag, you can get around Sri Lanka for next to nothing. So famed for its glorious right-hand point breaks, Morocco is a sick surf trip destination and one of the most budget-friendly trips for surfers from Europe. The deepest concentration of waves is in and around Tagzout. Here you've got those super fun green walls of Anchor Point, the fast barreling rights of Boilers, heaps of other fun waves as well in the vicinity. You're just pretty spoiled for waves. There's also some wicked beginner beaches with surf schools and where surf camps take all of their lessons. In town, you can find dorm rooms for around $10 a night. Again, check out Hostel World, have a scroll through there and you'll find something that suits your budget. Check out the Surf Hostel Tagzout or Happy Surf Hostel Tagzout. They're a couple of great places to stay in town. Now, from Tagzout, you can walk to some of the waves. There's a couple of right-hand points close to town that work on bigger swells. Otherwise, you can make the hike or you can hitchhike up to Anchor Point. Otherwise, you will need a car in Morocco because a lot of the other waves are spread out a little bit. Check out Discover Cars or rentalcars.com. They'll have the cheapest prices. So if you're flying into Agadir, you can rent a car from the airport there and then you'll be good to go. Last but not least, we've got one of the best budget surf destinations on earth. Sandwiched between Honduras and Costa Rica, Nicaragua has been drawing surfers for decades. As the place has just got so many waves, it's ridiculous. We're talking perfect A-frame reefs, hollow beaches, other reef setups, beginner-friendly bays. There's a bit of something for everyone in Nicaragua. Super consistent. Down south, it's pretty much always offshore. You're pretty spoiled in Nicaragua. Across the coast of Nicaragua, there's so many different like little surf towns. By far the most popular and like the biggest surf hub is Popoyo. Popoyo is located in the south of the country. Because of where Lake Nicaragua is, it's almost always offshore here. It's got such a high concentration of surf spots in walking distance. Popoyo isn't really a town, it's more of like a few roads kind of strung together by these like dusty streets. There's really not much going on. Down at Playa Guasacate, I think I'm butchering that pronunciation, we've got a number of surf hostels right on the beach. Check out Popoyo Surf Villas for $11 per night for a dorm. Melting Elephant next door for slightly higher. And yeah, there's a few other accommodations in that area as well. In that same stretch, you've got a number of decent restaurants where you can eat meals for $5. You can get beers for less than $2. If you're really serious about just going somewhere, getting waves, not fussed about doing much else apart from surfing and trying to make those dollars stretch, then there's nowhere better really than Nicaragua. So there we have it. That concludes our breakdown of some of the world's cheapest surf destinations. Now later on in this series, we're going to be revisiting all the destinations I mentioned today, and we're going to be breaking them down further. So gonna try and release one of these videos every single week, so stay tuned for the upcoming videos. We're gonna be breaking down every single one, diving into some of the prices, some more accommodation options, how to get around. Any questions of anything to do with budget travel, please let me know in the comments. And just before I leave you, I wanna tell you about a free online course I've been working on. I'll leave the link in the description. It's completely free and it just takes you through all the things that I do to make surf trips happen, basically. So all of the planning, the budgeting, kind of my mindset around budget surf travel, and all of like the sneaky money saving tips I use to make all of these trips happen. So hopefully it helps you guys go on more surf trips. For now, it's goodbye from me. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next episode. So stay tuned.